Evening, everyone. Thursday night, Stump the Band, as it's been called on other shows. Thursday night, Getting Back to Zero. This is our panel discussion. We are still waiting on one other person to join us, but I've got two. I think, yeah, they've actually both been on the show. But we are going to just a real head before I bring them in. Just as a reminder, Saturday morning we're going to run. The conversation, if you've seen this, or I've been kind of putting it out on the Getting Back to Zero Facebook page, but Michael McNamara, who's the author of the Post-Traumatic Winning series, I've gone through that course myself, and really amazing. I didn't realize trauma was even, I thought that only had to do with people that were in the military or survived, dealt with 9/11, events like that. I didn't realize that trauma affects all of us in our own different ways, but incredible course. The one thing I've learned about trauma is the number one coping skill for trauma is comes in for me in 12-pack containers. And I think that's the case with a lot of people. I know alcohol is the number one misguided, whatever you want to say, but coping skill that people are using to deal with their trauma. So we're going to have a great discussion about identifying trauma. What is it? Can we move past it? How do we deal it? I think his Trauma into Joy is his thing, but a fantastic series. We're going to actually open that up. He's starting a new run on Tuesday, and we're going to have limited space, but it's a free 8-week series. If anyone's interested, I will have that link up probably tomorrow, and you can email, but we'll be talking about that Saturday morning as well. But that starts on Tuesdays for a week. It actually cuts in about halfway into our show, but hey, this is about everyone fixing themselves. So if it's something someone wants to look, please go for it. I think it's good, but we'll have good information on that as well. So I am going to jump. I'm going to okay, there we go. There is Michelle from up north. How are you doing, Michelle?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. Did you have a long day of wrestling with grizzly bears and fishing for salmon in the streams?
No, we're actually not too much right now. We're in 7 days of thunderstorm right now.
And you're like you're almost to, you're very close to Santa, correct? Up in the North Pole?
I feel that way, especially in the winter time.
Yeah, I bet. Well, good to have you here. I know Michelle was on, I don't know, a while ago, and we had some audio difficulties because of she didn't pedal her bicycle fast enough up in wherever in the tundra. But we're going to have Michelle back on. She's got an incredible story, and it was unbelievable. We just had some audio, so Michelle's going to come back and tell us that again. And then we also have our favorite chef now. If you guys are following us on either TLC or the Getting Back to Zero, Mark has turned his life into Chez Pierre's cuisine. Mark, how you doing?
I'm doing awesome, man. It's all about salads for me these days. It's all about eating things from the earth.
They say when you that's one thing that scares me legitly about alcohol or alcoholism is that when we give it up because we're so compulsive and we drank compulsively or used compulsively, whatever it is, that some people jump in and do. There's Elizabeth coming in. We got to just rip on her for being late. This is very unprofessional of her. Yeah, you're late, Elizabeth. Can you hear us, Elizabeth?
Yep.
Do you want to explain yourself for being late? Yeah. You should see the complaints filing in.
I bet they're marching in furiously, fast and furious.
Oh. Well, anyways, so Elizabeth, you're from where? Where are you calling in from?
Grapevine, Texas.
Okay, gotcha. And Mark is out visiting friends in Virginia, and Michelle is up near the North Pole. So glad you guys are here. So Thursday night is panel discussion. No rules, no right answers. These are questions that have been asked by people. Usually these are ones that are newer into sobriety, but it's ones we all face. So There is no right answer, wrong. This is just opinions and advice for all of us to use, because these are all things. A simple one to start off. I hear the term, Mark, I'll throw this one at you. What is a dry drunk? Someone asked.
A dry drunk.
Yes.
Well, from what I hear, it's somebody just stops drinking without doing any work on themselves. It's all they do is cut alcohol out of their lives, and they don't add any spirituality into it. That really hasn't happened in my life, but that's what I've heard about it. That's my understanding of it. It's just somebody that just quits drinking, but they may still be an asshole. So,
Michelle, have you heard that term?
Well, I call it the pink cloud phase, which is I'm not in the fellowship, but I know that AANA, they call it the pink cloud, which yes, it's the same thing. It's you quit drinking or you quit using and life doesn't change. So that you've just cut that out, but nothing else you've changed. So no habits, you haven't found coping skills, you're still miserable, or yeah.
Elizabeth, anything to add on that?
No, I mean, I think those are both pretty good descriptions. I think of it. My stint as a dry drunk was several years ago, and it wasn't until I recognized that there was the community that was needed, that there was the spiritual work that was needed, not being an asshole needed, that I realized, really what the difference between quitting drinking and getting sober was. I think there's a value if you can get to the place of being a dry drunk, if that's as far as you get. I don't know how long it lasts for people, but any harm reduction is good, and then taking those next steps, I think, requires a lot more heavy lifting that people aren't talking about as much or haven't talked about as much in the past, and why that would seem sort of like a confusing term. But I think it's still a good place to start.
So what was anyone else? And I was a dry drunk, but what is the problem? Why is that a negative term if it is to you?
I can answer that one. So if you have an addiction, then it is affecting your relationships. It's affecting you financially. It's affecting so many parts of your life. And you just cut that out, but you're not fixing the relationships. You're not building coping skills. You're not learning how to do emotional regulation. So therefore, your relationships, I say, would suffer the most, because you're not changing as a person. So you're still in that addict mind. You're still acting like that addict that everyone doesn't want to be around. And so, yeah, that's how I feel about it.
I was, for me, the dry drunk was when I quit drinking, and I quit for 9 years before I realized I didn't have a problem, which I changed that mind on day 3 after starting drinking again. But it almost, a dry drunk for me was a curse, because I took the alcohol out of my system. I didn't fix any of the problems, because all the problems I face in life are there with alcohol or without. I mean, I add problems to it, but the things that make me want to drink at the end of the day, or the stresses, are still there. But it was a negative, because I then took away the only coping skill I knew at the time, which was drinking. And that's how I got through the stress. So now I took alcohol away, and now I was even more miserable, because I had to face all this crap by myself, and I don't like facing it by myself.
And your relationships didn't get better.
Right. So it wasn't until I didn't realize for all that time how unhappy I was. I look back now, and now the difference is, through groups like this, I've learned how to fix myself, and it's an ongoing process. But things that sent me over the edge before aren't doing it now. So
Yeah.
that was. I think I was, when this was asked, I laughed, because it was, I thought, I'll just look in the mirror on this one. I can answer. I don't need to ask you guys. I can answer this one pretty much myself. So, Elizabeth, I feel so out of place when I'm out with friends if I'm not drinking. I actually drank just to feel a part of the group. how can I do it without drinking alcohol? So I guess, you know, how do we go out? How do I feel like I fit in with my friends when they're all drinking and I'm not? And I am Mr. Spineless. So I was that guy that said, well, because I don't want to hurt their feelings, I'll drink.
Right. So I think it's twofold. I think one, the question is about those friendships and the validity, the strength. I think the acceptance that it's likely. I have yet to meet anybody who got sober whose friendships didn't change, and that depending on their drinking history, that the basis of those friendships may be drinking. In which case, don't be surprised, and as sad as it may feel, don't be disappointed, because some things better are on the other side. Deeper, richer relationships are around the corner. I think you can develop those. I think there's an honesty, a transparency that you have to get to be able to weather that with the friends that are your closest friends, the people who will stay in your life still. And then as a practical question, if you're in the process of figuring out whether or not your friends are people that you'll be friends with, and you're figuring out what you're doing. For me, I always had, my club soda and a rocks glass. I had the fake drink, and nobody asks if you've got a drink in your hand. And usually then I planned on leaving early. I would go out for a couple hours. I would have pre-planned my exit. So I always had something I had to go and do. And so I had that story and I was sticking to it. And that was tough to come up with at first. It was the first few times because it felt very disingenuous. But when you recognize what you're doing it for, I think the ability to justify that comes pretty easy once you recognize that that's your out. You have to pick a direction you're going to go with that. Either you're telling them or you're not. And if you're not telling them, then you need to have a very strong plan for hanging out and then getting out.
I like that, because an empty glass is an invitation to buy me a drink or to give me a drink. So,
Yep.
I have my iced teas or my Diet Pepsis or whatever. Mark, what are your thoughts on that one?
My experience is I have a pretty small group of close friends that I've had for a long time, and my work schedule I don't go out. I don't go out and hang out with people and do stuff. I'm always working in the evenings. So most of my drinking was alone, at home, alone at night. So I haven't had that problem of having to reintegrate myself into a community that was, that's at the bar. I didn't hang out at the bar. I didn't go out anywhere really. But my experience these days is that there's really nobody that I come in contact with that I'm going to be in that situation that's not going to know that I'm not drinking, because it just can't be a part of my life anymore. And it's my life has changed, and I'm now I enjoy the seltzers. I enjoy the drinks that I didn't enjoy before, and that's where I'm at. I like drinking the seltzers with lemons and limes, and I haven't had to be put in that situation really yet. There was one time where I was around my ex-wife's family a few months ago, and there was alcohol involved, and I knew that it was going to be there, and I showed up and just limited my time there. I left after a little while before I got too crazy about thinking about it. I didn't let myself go that far. I got out of that situation. That's really been the only situation for me so far.
Michelle, did you tell people when you were going out, or some people will stick with the club soda or the drink, or even a non-alcoholic drink, and not tell people? I'm just curious with all of you guys, did you tell people right away, no, I'm not drinking, or I quit, or?
Okay, so I have a little bit something different to say with this.
Yeah, go ahead.
First off, it's your self-confidence. You need to work on your self-confidence, because you're being very passive and you need to be assertive with yourself. And if you don't have any self-confidence, then you're not going to be assertive with anyone. You're not going to stick up for yourself. You're not going to have boundaries with people. So my suggestion is you need to work on your self-esteem and yourself, and you need to work on being assertive and setting boundaries. And Another thing, do those positive affirmations, fake it till you make it. Like I'm at the point now where like I have to say on the weekend, my dad, he came and visited and he brought a 2-6 of Crown and a 2-6 of Jacks and drank it in front of me. And, you know, at the end of the day, one, I make sure I have a support person with me at all times if I'm in a situation like that. So someone I can be like, hey, I need you to help me get out of the situation right now. So if a wedding anywhere that I know that there's going to be drinking, I bring a support person who can help me get out of the situation. But at the end of the day, it's your self-confidence. You need to be able to set boundaries with people, and alcohol too, like drugs, maybe not so much. You can avoid them, but alcohol, it's going to be around, and you're going to have to be assertive and set boundaries with people. And yeah, like I just tell people, if I'm going to drink, then you want to take me to the hospital or you're going to call the police at the end of the night. Which one do you want to pick one?
You know, the only I agree with you, but it's and I'm just looking in the mirror on that, why that's easier said than done, because
Oh, it takes a lot of
no,
work.
I'm spineless in that. I mean, I am the epitome of a wimp when it, and succumbing to peer pressure. I didn't have that. Now I'm at a spot, but that was an issue. Probably why I drank initially was because that gave me the courage to be that person.
Mhm.
But without it, I don't know if I had enough to stand up to that or to be assertive.
Exactly. And if you were sure of yourself and you had self-confidence, like you see people, like I've seen it. I remember being back in high school and there's just like specific memories that I remember, and people were just like, no, I'm not doing that. You're like, you're fucking stupid. Sorry, I don't know, swearing,
No, you're all right. You're all right.
And I look back and I'm like, hey, that kid had really good self-confidence just to say that to someone and not like get into peer pressure. So it is a lot about building your self-confidence. I do a self-esteem check-in test once a week just to make sure mine isn't going down, because I know if mine's going down, then my chances of a relapse, slip, hospitalization for mental health goes up.
Did you come up with that test yourself, or is that something you found?
No, I was actually giving it to it. We were giving it to weekly at the concurrent disorder program that I went to, and I made photocopies of it, and then I just do it weekly because I have realized now how important your self-esteem is when it comes to addiction.
Maybe you could share that, send that in to me or whatever. And I mean,
yeah, for sure.
I'd love to put it up on the group page. We're all about giving people as much tools. Elizabeth, what was your did you tell people, or were you did you do the drink?
So I the first go round, I like what Michelle said, that the self-esteem component, the assertiveness, you have to be able to be assertive with yourself as much as anything else. And I have never really struggled with that in my life, but still found myself at a place where I was the emotional work of figuring out whether or not these would still be my friends. Like it all came at me very quickly. So the first time around, a few years ago, I definitely was the fake it till you make it fake drink. And I just had my exit strategies ready to go. But that also, as a single mom, like my exit strategies were numerous. I didn't have to stretch very far to come up with something. So it really wasn't that difficult to be that way, but it did feel disingenuous. And so I did ultimately go back to drinking for a time. And then when I got sober again, I felt the need. I thought the accountability was actually more what I needed more than anything else. And I had kind of figured out through the course of that middle time, the in-between time, that there were some friends that I just took inventory of those friendships. And by and large, I'm not really friends with the people that I only went out with. I also don't, like Mark, I don't go out that often. But when I did, it was, a free-for-all Friday night kind of thing. So it was going to be obvious no matter what, and something I felt like I needed to just hug the monster on and say, I'm not I'm just not. And if people had questions, then I'd answer their questions. But I didn't start out that way. I felt largely like it wasn't anybody's business. And it was too personal of a thing for me while I was trying to figure it out. I was trying to understand myself. And I wasn't prepared to have those conversations, not for lack of self-esteem about it, but that I didn't know shit. I didn't know what I was doing. So, but I think that's a really great point, especially internally. And I would love to see the self-esteem, evaluation. I think that'd be awesome to share with folks.
Well, Michelle, send that to me when we're done here, and I will post that, and then keep that in mind, Michelle, because that sounds like something you could bring some expertise to the group. So when we talk at a further time, Mark, Mr. Get Out of My Way. I don't care what you think about me. Mr. Mark and I are completely different when it comes to self-confidence, and he's like, get out of my way, I'm the man. Mark, how did you broadcast to the world, or what was your?
That I'm thinking back to your first question. I couldn't think fast enough when you asked that first question.
No, go ahead.
I actually was. Now that I think about it, I never considered myself this, but I actually was a dry drunk years ago when I went to treatment. I did go to treatment, and it was a secret. I couldn't tell anybody that I was in treatment because I was embarrassed, and nobody could know. And that's what happened. I ended up going back to my old ways and ended up, my life spiraled out of control. This time around, 5 months ago, it ended up putting me in the hospital. Alcohol really wrecked my life so bad and my health so bad that it put me in the hospital. And when I came out, it took a few weeks of physically recovering, but then, I started figuring out, I started reaching out to people. And once I found TLC and Laura's group, Laura McCowan, I decided I had to make a decision to do things just totally different than I did before. I had to just broadcast whatever was going on with me to the world. I didn't care what you thought about it, because it wasn't for you, it was for me. I had to be held accountable. And I basically just came out on Facebook and to all my friends and my family and everybody. I was just like, look, this is what happened to me, and I don't want to go back to that place. So I need to tell you what's going on with me. I can't hide that a secret, keep that a secret anymore. And when that happened, it just freed me to not have to worry to carry that around anymore, to hide it. So it freed me to work on myself, and it worked for me to just say, boom, I can't drink anymore. It doesn't work for me. It about killed me.
I'm going to jump because we have someone that's new, that's in our group, that's just starting out. So what, I don't know how long what they have, but let's just assume that they're from a few days to a week. What would be your advice to them for in the early stages? Because at this point, I didn't know which way was up in sobriety. I didn't know. I just knew that I was hearing 9 million pieces of advice, and somehow I stumbled on the right ones, I guess just listening. But for someone that's new, that's coming in, what would be your advice for them? Elizabeth? Oh, go ahead, Michelle, you can start.
Okay. I was like, my advice, if you go through withdrawals, start calling around, get into a detox. Beds are available. Every hospital, I'm pretty sure, even in the States, has a detox program or a program of some kind. Get into a detox facility, call around. That's actually my number one thing that I get at 12, 1, 2 o'clock in the morning messages on Instagram. And I just tell people, call around, start calling around, see if there's beds available. If you don't go through withdrawals and you just know you have a problem, even though I'm not in the fellowship, get yourself to a meeting. Just walk in those doors. That would be my first I just tell everyone that if you think you have a problem or anything, walk into an AA NA meeting, and it will just, I think that's a great place to start.
I agree, because I think the talking to another one of us, because there's no one, we all get it. There's nothing anyone can say that we haven't lived. Elizabeth, what's your, for someone that's in the early stages looking for all sorts of answers, motivations, reasons to keep going, finish lines, all that good stuff.
Yeah, I think that the first thing, or for me at least, the first thing I learned was that I needed to your point, 9 million data points at a time, way too much to try to keep up with, right? Like, does this apply to me? Does that not apply? My advice is to find the first few things that do apply to you, that resonate with you, and learn about them and try to implement those. Keeping a routine of self-care things, even if it's just 3 things that you do every day, that you get up and you have this morning routine, and making sure something as simple as brushing your teeth, but being conscious about it, being self-aware, and taking that advice, taking those bits of advice and working through them as they apply to you. And then, I'm not in the program either, and fellowship, but take what works and leave the rest, so to speak. I really think that's basic life advice, honestly. Take what works and leave the rest. And I think the initial decision of not drinking, you recognize that doesn't work. So I'm going to remove that, because I'm leaving that one behind. And then I'm going to start with, here's this place, and identifying, even if you want to be aggressive about it, looking at your drinking pattern and looking at the behavior, the people that you're around when you recognize that you've been out of control, and start picking at one of the scabs. I mean, you have to start somewhere. And my advice on attitude would be that you have to be fearless about it. I've seen Mark from the day one that he showed up, and he has been absolutely moved. Get out of the way. Like, I'm coming through. But not everybody has that thing in them. But it certainly works. And it also works to be that person for other people. So once you have kind of gone around a bend, I would highly encourage even new people, start looking for the people who are coming in behind you. And as you're talking about what you've done and your progress, you can help them, which then starts to feed your own capacity to heal as well.
Mark, I'm going to come to you, but for me, and Mark was a total inspiration, but there's so many, my success came when I became proactive versus reactive. And a perfect example is, if I go into I go in somewhere, shameless plug for my Diet Pepsis, but you guys, I don't leave home without it. But if I have something in my hand when I enter there, I don't have to make a choice of what to put in my hand when I'm in there. That choice is made. If I know that I'm going to be in a tempting situation tonight, to wait till I'm there and hope I can come up with the right decision is too late for me. I've got to make the plans ahead of time. So if I know at 5 o'clock, I pass that liquor store, that bar, or whatever, my plan is I am going to call Mark or whoever at 4:45, or I'm going to call him, even better yet, and say, Mark, call me at 4:45. I'll be dry. I need you. So I've got to make those plans ahead. And as far as the programs, I'm an AA'er, but I'm the first one to say the best program out there is the one that works for you. And I will do anything. Like TLC, Tammy Scott is a gal that I would say anyone to go watch. Shameless plug. She's on right now, so I saw her in the chat. But no, I'm looking for anything and everything. And Tammy is a fantastic source. But like you said, Elizabeth, I like that. I don't like that. I don't like that. Grab what is going to work for you. But for me, it's planning. I can't hope at the moment when the moment happens that I'm going to make the right decision. I will fail. I'm 0 for 3,000 at doing that.
Yeah, I agree. I think that that's really challenging at the very beginning, at the onset of recovery, because you don't know what works for you. You don't have any idea what to do. And so I think having some grace with yourself and recognizing that you're scatter shooting, you're going to try these different things, and recognize quickly when it doesn't work, and just go down to the next one on the list, whatever that next, the next plan is. As long as it's in the direction of the next right thing, I think you can't get it.
Mark, what about you for the first, someone's just getting started?
it's community. You know, Jeff, your plan won't work unless you've already connected to somebody that has your number or that knows you. You know, that somebody knows what's going on with you. You just can't hide. We can't do this alone. It's impossible. We tried to do it alone for our whole lives, and it didn't work. And that's what got us here. And what got us here is because we have a community now. I've accepted the fact that I cannot get healthy alone, and I'm allowing people into my life to help me. And when that happens, I'm allowed into their lives also. And it's just a reciprocal thing. It just goes back and forth. Somebody needs help, they might call me. And that gives me the motivation for the day to stay on the path, because I want to help them. It just goes back and forth. And, you know, I finally accepted the fact that I needed help, and that I could talk to somebody. I could have friends that love me, and that I could love and care about me, and that I cared about. So when I need somebody, which has happened, I mean, it's why I'm here where I am today. It's because I made the decision to, like I said, to do things 180 degrees from what I was doing. And I put my hands out there and I said, please grab onto them, because I need you. And when that happened, my life changed.
It is, I think it's, and the other term you have to be, it wasn't when I wanted sobriety, I didn't get it. It wasn't for me. It was until I was willing to get sobriety and willing to do whatever it took, because every time I want didn't get me there. There's a lot of things I want. I want to be a professional golfer. It ain't going to happen. I'm not willing to do what it takes to get there. But when I knew I had a good shot at this when that night, when I ran out of lies, I no longer wanted to be sober. I was willing. I got nothing. I'm ready. I'm willing to do whatever it takes. And that commitment was another, hoping for the commitment, hoping I don't drink. I got a plan. I got to go there. This one is worded wrong, but I think I get the gist of it. What do you do to keep positive thoughts and reminders in your head all day? People say, just don't think about it. I get overwhelmed and that's all I do. I think so. Their thing is, all I'm doing is I'm thinking about it's Friday, or it's, you know, for me, it didn't matter what day, but drinking. And, you know, think happy thoughts, get it out of your head. Well, how do you do that? Because I'm flooded with, and then I can start for a second, and you know, the first commercial or the first billboard is for Mick Ultra or whatever.
Yeah.
Truck goes by on the road that's got the big Budweiser label on it. You know, it's everywhere. How do you keep when those thoughts are pounding in your head? How do you stay positive?
Meditation helped me. Oh, go ahead, Elizabeth.
Oh, no, you're good. Go ahead, Mark.
Jeff, you know, when I tried to do it before, people kept talking about meditation, but nobody really explained it to me what it was. And it's helping me today, because I'm learning that through meditation, I can have thoughts come into my head, and I can't control that when they come into my head or what comes into my head, but I can control what goes on once they're there. I don't have to pay mind to them, and I don't have to give energy to the bad ones. And I never knew I could do that. And that's what I'm learning today. That's helping me so much, is that things come into my head and I don't know what's going to come into my head, but I'm learning how to control what to do with them when they get there.
How do you learn to control that, Mark?
Through mindful meditation. Like I said, I've downloaded the Waking Up app, and I listen to meditations on YouTube, and it's a practice. You know, it seems like a joke at first, like, you know, just get quiet with myself, and how am I going to do that? And you think you're doing it wrong, but it's just something. It's just like our sobriety. You just have to work at it every day. I have to work at it quite a bit to learn how to do it. It doesn't just come. If it just came, everybody would just, you know, it would just be a snap of a finger and everybody would be able to do it. But I'm learning. You know, I still, it's a process. I have to do it every day. I don't do it every day though. That's the thing. Mm-hmm. But I do it. I find myself doing it enough that I'm learning, and I feel good about it, that I'm learning how to control the time and the energy that I give to those thoughts, that I don't have to pay so much attention to the thoughts that may be negatively impacting me.
Yeah, I would agree. I think
ahead.
I start there's meditation, there's my yoga practice, there are a million different little ways that you can exercise mindfulness, whether it's that you take the time and you're making dinner and you're just letting the thoughts come and practice letting them go, which is harder than it sounds, but once you get the hang of it, is not that difficult. I started a practice of pretty openly talking to myself, especially at home. So entire conversations will go on and I just work through whatever it is. Zero shame in that game at all for me. And then I have probably the strangest collection of Post-it notes that I have over the years. I see something or I read something that helped get me out of a funk or gave me something good to think about. And onto a Post-it note it goes. Usually it lives on the bathroom mirror until the bathroom mirror is pretty cluttered, and then they get transferred to the back door of my bedroom. So the constant rotation of good juju and notes. But I've got a stack of Post-its that I keep at my desk for any moment that I might need to write something good down. Either from a meeting, from a friend, something that just pops into mind, to help me remember, because some days we just get so busy that even being mindful, it's just go, go, go. And so then having that sudden interruption, to your point, a billboard, a commercial, whatever may be the triggering thought. If you have something, especially for me, having something that I can put my hands on, that I can put eyes on immediately and kick my brain back into a more thoughtful place, a better, healthier place, that's always been useful for me.
This is just one I just pulled off. It says, I got them all over. You can't see it, but this one says salt that euphoric recall, which is, I keep this little salt shaker. I'm a prop guy, but I keep this because when you don't want to eat food, how do you make it taste bad so it takes the temptation away? You salt the crap out of it. And that's when I have a thought, a craving, boy, that looks good. I got to do whatever I got to do to add the bad part of what that drinking's going to bring. I can't let it sit as a wonderful, happy thought of, boy, that would be fun. I've got to say, okay, what happens though when you leave there? What happens then? What happens later? I got to do that whole thing. Go ahead.
Playing the movie out to the end is really powerful. Remember, being assertive with yourself, like I said, Michelle's point about having that self-esteem, that it really does start within yourself, with the dynamic that you have with yourself, and playing that movie out to the end and being honest with yourself about how that really goes is a pretty powerful tool. Because at no point does anybody start a Friday night, well, not anybody that with a measure of sanity starts a Friday night going, you know what? It's going to be super awesome if I lose a shoe and I throw up on my best friend and I can't get in the house because I lost my keys. Nobody's signing up for that on purpose. But if you play the movie out to the end and you know that that's the likelihood or the possibility, one or all of those happening, that I think you start arming yourself with those truths, and you're that much more powerful. Whether it's a visible reminder, something like the salt shaker, whatever helps you get through those thoughts to how it really actually goes, I would say is also another excellent way of avoiding the thoughts, going ahead and letting it happen, process it, and then be like, okay, yeah, I already know I made a better decision.
I hear too many good ones that I can't remember, so I got to put them down on Post-its, and I have them in my truck. I've got them wherever as reminders. Michelle, what were you going to say about?
Oh gosh. Okay, cut me off if I talk too long.
Oh no, roll.
Okay, so
Mark was looking like he had to do a potty break anyway, so this will work. No, I'm just kidding.
Okay, so first off, sorry, can you repeat your question one more time?
I don't even remember it, but it was the positive thoughts. How do I keep the negative? That's
I went everywhere during those conversations. Took me my brain everywhere. Okay, so first off, I will tell everyone out there, they say cravings last 10 minutes. Well, I'm going to call BS on that one, because they will last all day for me. I don't know about anyone else. My suggestion, and even on bad mental health days, is one, yes. So I do I do mindful exercises daily, probably more than once a day. I like breathing exercises because they'll actually get your brain out of that fight or flight zone, and it will actually in your body it will activate the rest or digest response in your body. So it takes you out of that panic mode. That's why I like mindfulness. It's known to decrease blood pressure, which helps with anxiety. Like there's so much to do with mindfulness that is actually scientifically proven. So I like to do breathing mindfulness exercises are my favorite. Muscle progressive relaxation ones are my favorite as well. Because you can do those anywhere, no one can even tell. And you're immediately going to bring down your blood pressure, stop your anxiety, bring yourself back to your surroundings. Another thing that I like to do
I
is
real quick, Michelle, I'm gonna have on. I've talked to a gal, but because I am lousy at breathing. I'm lousy at meditating. I just don't know. And I've got someone, we're going to do not a series, but we're going to do some classwork on breathing, because everyone talks about the benefit of it. So we're going to
Yeah,
do
that's
some
the
of that
one
in the
that's-
future.
that's the mindfulness exercises are actually the one. When your breathing slows down, your body responds by going into rest or digest response. So that one's actually the best one. Breathing exercises for anxiety, and anxiety is a huge part. I know for you too as well when it comes to
Mhm.
substance abuse. So breathing mindfulness exercises are huge. And then one other thing I wanted to say is I'm a huge fan of CBT and DBT therapy. I do workbooks every morning. One that I can suggest for anyone out there with addiction is the mindfulness workbook for addictions. You can just Google it or get it off of Amazon. Another way I try to keep positive is nature. You have no idea. Nature is so beneficial for your health, your mental health. It's scientifically proven. There are studies out there. That's one that I would suggest as well. Just get out in nature. Bring yourself back to your surroundings and out of your head. Yeah, those would be my few biggest suggestions.
I was talking to someone today, and they had asked about not just this show, but TLC, the Luckiest Club, or these type of meetings, and asked, do you watch? And I think it was a family member, and said, no, I don't. And why not? And said, because I would have to face myself, and I don't want to have to do that and have to admit things, which was really interesting, because I guess, I don't know, what are your thoughts? Because maybe
Recovery is all about feeling comfortable with feeling uncomfortable, because that's all you do when you're being an addict is numbing your uncomfortable feelings, right? So if you're going to become sober, that's my one thing I tell people is get comfortable with feeling uncomfortable.
Elizabeth, did you feel uncomfortable when you started, or did you have to step into the uncomfort zone?
Yeah, I had pretty significant discomfort at the beginning. I come from a family of people that on one hand, there's a lot of at least surface level, but like emotional conversations about feelings and opinions on things were not foreign. And then the other side of my family where I wouldn't say they were foreign, but they were certainly they were definitely more difficult when they did happen, and they were less frequent. And so but I myself have always been a person that was comfortable with the uncomfortable topics and the trying to pick things apart and understanding, how they worked. Always interested in a very literal sense, building a better mousetrap, so to speak. And so, but I found that there's a lot of things that I knew somehow, like instinctively I knew them, but having to actually walk through them was super, super uncomfortable. And, and recognizing why they were happening, and sort of when I developed that trauma response, why, at 7 years old, is this a thing that I'm in my 40s, And here I'm looking back at being a little kid, and I've raised 2 children, and I'm looking at the little me and thinking, oh, wow, okay. So then starting to recognize how that thing that happened at 7 then translated to behaviors of mine at 12, and then at 14 and 16 and then 24, and kind of walking back through each of those paths. I would say by and large, the right word is probably uncomfortable. There were some instances where it was certainly easier than others. But all of that, anytime you're breaking something open and looking at it for its smaller pieces, I think, and then trying to put it back together, I think that there's going to be a level of discomfort and confusion, anxiety, all of those things that will come up. And you do, Michelle's 100% correct. You have to be comfortable with being uncomfortable. And then what you find, at least in my experience, is that it gets more comfortable. You build this better toolbox. You build a process for yourself wherein you're able to do that more soundly, more efficiently, more gently, or sometimes just completely blasting something open because it just needs to not exist anymore. But you get more confident and comfortable with the process itself, but it never goes away. I mean, I don't know anybody that that has been in long time recovery that says that you don't have it anymore, that you outgrow the discomfort, the uncomfortable moments. They just are. That's the nature of humans. So
I just heard my coach. I just heard when you were talking, my coach is yelling, "No pain, no gain." And it kind of made me think the first time you go into the gym to work out, you step out of your comfort zone and you're sore as hell the next day. But like you said, you get used to it or it gets better. Just like with exercise, the first time you do it, you're sore as hell, but you keep doing it and that soreness goes away and it becomes easier and easier. It becomes more of a routine. But I think the no pain, no gain might fit with that. Mark, what does?
Yeah, like I said, I had to choose to do things different, and that means talking to people and talking about what was going on in my life, which I never did before. And it was hard at first. I had to force myself to get in touch with people and just to say hi. I don't want to drink today. Can you talk to me? Which felt really weird at first, but then it didn't. After a few times, it didn't, and to the point where I didn't have to force myself to do those things anymore. They were coming naturally, and I actually welcomed those kind of things into my life after a little bit. But yeah, I mean, it's to try to live a different way. It's going to be uncomfortable. I'm 44 years old, and I spent 4 decades learning how to live a certain way, and now I'm trying to rewire my brain to live another way, and it's going to be uncomfortable to do it. I'm going to want to go back to those old thoughts and those old patterns of behaviors, and it's to break them is uncomfortable because it has to be. If it was comfortable, then everybody, like I say, everybody just want to do it, but it is uncomfortable, but it becomes more comfortable the more you do it.
It's interesting, Mark, you said that because this wasn't a question, but I've talked to people that said my uncomfortableness is that my family is not happy with who I am now. They want the old me back that was maybe drank. I don't know the specifics, but maybe drank with them, my personality that was, and they don't like this the person I've become through sobriety. And that's a tough one.
Yeah, I have to, I've had to think that I have to kind of look at from the outside in and say that it looks like I'm trying to be fake. It looks like I'm trying to be someone that I'm not, which is, you're right. I'm trying to be someone that I wasn't. I'm trying to change myself and be different. And it was uncomfortable at first. Like I said, it was hard, but it's getting easier. It's not as hard as it was. But yeah, to do what I want to do, I literally have to change kind of who I was, and who I want to be. And people are used to you being a certain way, and they're used to reacting to you being a certain way. So when you are different, they don't know how to react to that because they have to change how they have to change also to accommodate that. And if they don't, then there might be some friction there. Sure.
Yeah.
Either of you, Michelle, Elizabeth, deal with family or friends that were not happy with the new you? Go ahead.
Okay, so I can actually, I'll put my 2 cents in on this one. My family, I mean, they are very supportive and everything like that. Some of them do not believe in mental health. And then others, anyways, it's just, I have dealt with it, and my family, my parents especially, I definitely got along better with them when I was an alcoholic and on drugs. But then I came to realize that it was me just coping with them and coping with my trauma, my PTSD with them. And also, I've come to realize that a lot of times the people that liked us better when we were using, it's not because they liked us better as a user. It's because look how much where we are and how much we have grown, and they're still stuck where we were a year, 2 years ago, right? They're in the same spot. We've done so much growth and they haven't. So they're, human nature is not to say positive, right? They're not going to like that. So you are going to get negative comments for sure. But you have to remember it's because they're stuck where they were 2 years ago, and look how much you've grown.
Yeah, I would tend to agree. I think I had some struggle with friends that were they just didn't want to hang out anymore because I didn't even have really have a problem with going out to places where there would be either where there was partying going on. I wasn't in anybody's face about the situation, but they definitely noticed changes in me that were not favorable to them. There's a saying about boundaries, and people who don't appreciate your boundaries are because they ran into them. And I had that happen in quite a few relationships. But looking back at them, those are relationships that really were at best acquaintances anyway. And so kind of not surprising. From a family perspective, I much like what you were describing, Michelle, I found that there were scenarios where the drinking was missed, but that's because I was like, oh my God, why do I don't have to hang out with these people just because we're related. And I used to and enjoyed those family times, but to what end, and
Is it with your health?
yeah,
Your
exactly.
sanity?
And I was like, that's just that can't work. But nothing negative that came from no negative reactions from family, just mostly me being my observations being the thing that came about where I was like, oh, interesting things to think about. And in some instances that they got talked about, they still continue to be conversations, as I've got very active drinker parents and family, extended family. So they come up, the topics come up.
Mhm.
Last big one for the group, and Elizabeth, I'll start with you just because what you said about the family, but how can I approach my sister who has a problem with drinking? I know her and she will probably just deny it. Now, I don't think we have to keep sister into that equation. I think substitute friend, family, but I know them and they will probably just deny it. Made that kind of hit home.
Yeah, I think I try to think about how I would have appreciated somebody approaching me. Not that my personality would be the same as this other person, but just as a matter of being kind and trying to figure out how you get the message across that you're not judging them, but it's out of concern.
But would you have accepted that? Because I would have completely turned on them, been angry at them, denied. I wouldn't have received that well.
I think it depends on which version of Elizabeth that you said that to. If it had been several years ago, I would have been like, okay. And then later, prior to like getting into this, second wave of recovery, I probably would have also laughed, but would have been more like, oh, really? Thanks for just catching on. Did you, of course, I had two very different mindsets. And I think, has made a significant amount of difference, quite frankly, about how recovery has gone for me. But it certainly, the initial reaction I think would have been like, who are you to tell me this? And I probably, depending on who it was coming from, could have been pretty explosive back at them, like about their own issues, their own problems too. That's tough. That's tough. That's what I was thinking about. If I had to go to someone and say something, trying to navigate what potential outcomes, trying to think that through, it feels like a very challenging thing. I guess probably depending on the dynamic of the relationship I had with that person, would make the difference of going at them and simply saying, I'm really worried, here's what I've observed, versus trying some gentle prodding, like maybe trying to have a conversation about it. I'm not sure the right way to approach that. I wish we had Tammy Scott on for that one.
I know, if she would call in, it would be so helpful. I'd make her raise her hand though and sit and wait, and then I would hold up a yellow card after 3 minutes. Inside jokes for all of you from TLC. It's funny though, Elizabeth, because kind of we're talking about intervention, the shows or just interventions, and I don't know how those are successful, because if you had intervened on me, I would have rebelled, and even if I had gone to and said, fine, I'll go to rehab, I would have sat there and pouted and then just to get even, when I got out, I would just drink to show you how dumb of an idea. I don't know how I had to be the one that was chose.
Sorry,
It had to be me.
funny.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think Michelle and I are laughing at the same thing. I would have probably had a very similar reaction. Yeah, I would have probably just gone completely wheels off. I'd get out. I don't know how they're successful either, but I think you have some individuals that it isn't their first time of having some sort of treatment, and that intervention has come at a time when they realize that they can't do it by themselves. But I think you see a pretty significant number of them, the update on people that they've gone back, they've relapsed, or they leave the program early. But yeah, I like I said, I wouldn't have I have an idea of how I might approach something like that, but I haven't the slightest clue the most successful way to have that conversation.
Yeah, all I can do these days, Jeff, is just to I have a friend who's trying to stop. He's having trouble, and I just tell him, this is what I'm doing. I can't force him to do anything. I can just say, this is what's working for me. I love you. I care about you. I want you to take care of yourself, but it's kind of on you to come to that realization that it takes work. It doesn't come. You have to do something about it. But yeah.
Jill, do you ever approach a family member or a friend or?
Yeah, I've done this lots, not to mention like I've been in and out of like my parents, my family have been doing interventions with me since I was like 16. Yeah, and it got to the it's bad when you're showing up to rehab drunk and they're kicking you out and you're saying, but you're here for drugs, you don't have an alcohol problem. But I'm telling you right now, like with me, I had 3 friends that I've taken to methadone clinics. I work for Family Doctors. So I have taken a few people to hook them up with Family Doctors and then been able to get them into programs because I can put out the referrals for them. And then, I've obviously had the friends that are like, F you and you're wrong. And that's mainly with family, actually. I have better luck with friends than I do with family. My family, it's at the point now where all I can say is I've come to the conclusion that the ones closest to us, the ones we love most, are the ones that we can't save, even though those are the ones we want to save the most. And all we can do, I can't beat myself up for it. My recovery can't go to the wayside because of that. So what I've chosen to do is just show them that recovery is possible. Just keep proving them through my journey, like my journey and my actions. That's the only thing I can do. And then whatever you believe in, whatever God, whatever my higher power, I just pray that to help my loved ones. Friends I have a lot better luck with. And I love when friends, I have a lot of friends I keep in contact with that I've been to rehabs with. And I tend to be the person that they like to call at 2 o'clock in the morning when they've slipped. And then they like to say that they're not, no, they haven't used. And I'm like, I'm the last person you want to lie to, right? So they know now, everyone knows they can't lie to me. So I don't know. I tend to be the person that they come to when they need help. And so when it comes to friends, I don't really have too much of an issue.
All right, last question for Mark. Mark, I've got family coming over tomorrow. We're having smoked pheasant with gnocchi salad. What dressing would you recommend?
I use a light ranch myself.
Light
I
ranch,
stay
okay.
away from the raspberry vinaigrette that I used to because it's too acidic for me.
Well,
But
that's
I
fine.
prefer a light ranch these days. Yeah.
Let me grab some Post-it notes right now so I can put those down and put that information up so I don't forget it. Well, look, awesome. You guys are incredible. That's great. Yeah.
Oh,
My
you think
Billy-
so too?
Billy agrees with you. That's my old man. He's my support staff. Anyways, thanks all three of you for being on. Great stuff. And we'll put this back. I know, Michelle, we'll get you back on hitting some of these topics, and we're going to talk about some breathing and yoga. Elizabeth might call on you for that. And then for pregame meal, Mark, you're going to be there to do a little something for us. Throw something we get together. So thanks everyone for being here. So Saturday morning, 8 a.m. Central Time, I will run it again at 11 so that the West Coasters can watch it at 8 o'clock their time. But we're going to have Mac McNamara on talking about trauma. So I think that's going to be really good. That's yeah, I learned so much of this. And I think that was a big liberating hurdle that I went through. So anyways, all right. Well, thanks everyone. Hang on and we will talk to you all soon. We'll see you Saturday morning. Take care.
Okay. All right.